Coming up, being charitable makes you and I feel good, right? But we have jobs and kids and bills to pay. A lot of time we just don't get around to giving back to the community, right? So how to get started, how to avoid mistakes that waste money and time. We're talking about that next on The Matt Townsend Show. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Matt Townsend Show. I am your host, Matt Townsend, your relationship coach, your life coach, doing what we can on this show every day of the week to help you and your loved ones strengthen their relationships, just basically grow healthy and happy lives. Try not to induce too much guilt. It's so easy as we go through life to just pick up a lot of baggage and never be able to discard it. This show is designed to give you the tools, the ideas, the solutions you need to really learn and to grow. I mean, I think we assume we're going to be learning just because we think learning is inherently just the way we work, right? We just learn. We learn how to be a better person. We learn how to be a better friend, how to forgive, how to get over things. And you know what I'm finding? We just don't learn necessarily. Sometimes it takes a concerted effort. So part of the key to this show is we want to bring you ideas and tools where you can, on a daily basis, listen in and get a little motivation, be able to laugh at yourself a little bit, and also listen to some of the greatest experts on certain topics. And today we've got another great attempt to do that. And again, I don't want to induce guilt for you because today we're going to be talking about charity. And quite honestly, I sometimes wonder if it is really the best policy. Is charity the best policy? Is that our goal? And we know honesty is, right? But charity's starting to really frustrate me a little bit because everywhere you go, there's a charity, right? The Japanese tsunami relief, the NBA have charities, NFL has charities. All of these different organizations are there to help. And I'm sitting here at times wondering, okay, I'm really being impacted by this economy. My kids still need things. I feel like I'm the biggest charity case I know. And that just makes me feel guilty because I know I shouldn't feel that way. And then I go buy a bunch of groceries or something at the store, throw down a lot of money, and they look at me and they say, would you like to donate $1 to charity? And I look at them and I'm like, are you kidding me? I just paid you $400. You donate the money to charity. And I start to get a little mad about it. And I'm realizing, you know what? That's probably not the spirit. That is not the spirit of charity. So we've brought in an expert that is kind of a self-proclaimed charity addict because she's just caught the spirit of it. And she has, I think, the right motivation behind it. She has the right sense of how to make it work. And we're going to be talking to her to see if we can't pick her brain and figure out how do you give when you feel like you have very little left to give? How do I give any more when it feels like everybody is just taking, they're constantly taking? And I want to be a good example. I want to be a good role model for my family, right? When I pull up off of the interstate or the freeway and there's somebody with a sign standing there asking for help and some money, do you do it? And I don't know. This is where I struggle because you're like, I don't want them to go drink. And I don't want him to go be an addict or blah, blah, blah. You know what? I think our heart's got to do a lot of the talking there. And again, today we want to just learn. What are some ideas? What are the tools? What are the things that seem to really make it work? Because, sometimes finding the time or money for charity can be difficult. It's hard. It's hard to make these things work. We're busy. We have a lot of stuff going on, but there's a little featurette by one of our producers here, Corinne Collins, talking about the little thing that she did for charity.
So, I'm not the most charitable person in the world, but that's mostly because I'm a student that doesn't have much money to spare. But what I do have is time. So a couple of weeks ago, I decided to embark on a challenge in an effort to raise money for a cause I believed in and hopefully to become a more informed citizen of the world. I decided to live below the global poverty line for a week, which meant that I spent less than $1.50 per day on food. Now, at the outset you might think, oh my goodness, she probably starved to death. But while I was more tired than usual, had some dizzy spells, and my digestion had a definite adjustment period, which I think is still ongoing, I did manage to do it with relative ease. Surprisingly, my biggest roadblock was not eating enough to be full, but a variety of flavour. I'm a bit of a foodie. Well, as much as one can be on a student budget. And since I like to both eat out and cook, having to eat rice and beans every day became a bit of a struggle. It's not that I couldn't use spices, but they tend to be expensive. So besides garlic, salt and pepper, I was pretty stuck for flavour variety. But I'll tell you one thing, even though I crave spicy food, which incidentally led me to watch many episodes of Man vs. Food, I did learn to be a bit more grateful for what I perceived as basics. 1.4 billion people worldwide spend less than $1.50 a day on food. And while I can never understand what it's truly like to have that as my daily existence, a week living under the global poverty line helped me to recognise how much I take for granted. And even though my digestion hasn't quite yet recovered from the experience, I think it's a fair price to pay to be a little more empathetic.
Corinne Collins. Ah, wow. Great segment there. 1.4 billion people living on $1.50 a day. Like, seriously, just imagine how much could you get at McDonald's dollar menu for $1.50 a day? No wonder she wasn't feeling well, because that is a huge deal. And I love her point. Maybe the charity that we really need to try to create is this charity of just getting to become more empathetic, as she said, or empathic, more of a feeler, more caring for just the plight of others. Maybe that's the real reason we need charities, is just to have a softer heart. And maybe a more open position where we are more accepting of people, less judgmental. I think it really just takes one major catastrophe. Maybe it just takes a tsunami like the Japanese suffered to finally realize how much we really need from each other. And then all of a sudden charity means something to us. It doesn't always probably mean something to us when we're just in our own world having our great life. But maybe where it means something is when you've lost something. And so on today's show, we're going to be bringing in a self-proclaimed charity addict, somebody that has found and literally absorbed and just totally eats up this concept of charity. We're going to pick her brain and figure out, how do we get it into our lives? How do we do it in a way that maybe isn't about losing yourself? Corinne didn't have to do everything. She just actually had to just back down her eating to $1.50 a day. And it created this sense of empathy. She then would donate some money in behalf of her opportunity. We've seen that too with a lot of different kinds of charities. There's so many different charities, like Locks of Love you may have heard of, where people just give their hair. They grow their hair out. They need about 10 inches. You put it in a ponytail and you cut it off, and you donate that to charity so that they can make wigs and hair pieces for people that have lost their hair. Now, again, they won't accept everything. You can't send in your dreadlocks. The dreadlocks are not allowed. But you know what? There's a million ways to give, from hair to just saving some money by not eating as much every day and giving that to charity. We're going to pick the pros' brains on how to create a charity addiction inside of all of us. You're listening to the Matt Townsend Show. Stay with us right here on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio. Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. We're talking about charities. How do you gain the spirit of charity and maybe also do the work of charity? And how do you not feel over-guilted? How do you not feel like, oh, see, just another thing the world needs from me that, again, I can't deliver on because my life is so pathetic? You don't have to go there. Instead, we're going to be talking to a self-proclaimed charity addict, wonderful person, incredible spirit, Tiffany Berg. We're going to bring her on in a minute. But before we do, Tiffany Berg and a guy named Greg Adamson are co-founders of Heart to Home, which is a nonprofit group that does home makeovers for families in need. They were featured on Turning Point, a BYU TV program about making a difference in the world. Here's a clip from their show.
Really, it's a crazy group of volunteers that use their particular skill sets to make life easier for families in need. My name is Tiffany Berg, and I'm the co-founder of Heart to Home.
We're not very good at raising money. We've never been good as a foundation at going out and raising cash. What we're good at is going out and getting contractors to donate their time, getting suppliers to donate supplies and materials. You really realize that just some simple acts, a couple of days of getting in and getting involved and doing some service can change somebody's life forever. The way we work with Heart to Home is we'll identify needs, and then basically we send everybody out and they go out and try to find people that will donate those things or help donate or fund them. And so it really is a neat thing of just a lot of different people going in 40, 50 different directions, trying to figure out how to get this home built or this family put back in.
All of us are volunteers. We share the stories of the families that we're working for, the things that they really need. And then we say, would you be able to paint a bedroom? Would you furnish the bedding for this room? Would you donate a couch? Would you donate some concrete? And really, it's just a matter of kind of this stone soup, getting people to participate at whatever level they can.
Is everybody who worked on that, are they in construction? Did they know what the heck they were doing?
No, not everybody's in construction, and I wouldn't even say everybody knows what they're doing, especially me. But yeah, it's an odd mix, and everybody's kind of got their own niche, their own thing that they do. That's part of what makes it good, is everybody's got different experiences and different ideas.
The great thing about Heart to Home is that people can actually see the difference they're making. And I think that part is very contagious.
To be honest, a lot of it is the neighbors that step up and say, hey, you know, it'd be nice to do this in our yard, or to build a planter box, or to decorate a room this way. And to me, that's what makes Heart to Home so great, is it's not my idea, it's not Tiffany's idea or anybody else's. We always get nice little touches on the home that we never really planned on doing, because people step up and want to make it better.
So Tiffany Berg, Greg Adamson, co-founders of Heart to Home, and we have invited Tiffany Berg, I think probably the smarter, more beautifully talented, wonderful part of that duo, with us today. Tiffany, thanks for joining the show.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. Good topic.
You're the best. And let me just let everyone know about you, because you have a pretty diverse background, which is probably setting up this charity thing, I think, pretty well. Let's tell everyone about you. You're a speaker, and a great speaker, motivational speaker. Interesting little bit of you is you're a widow by cancer. Husband died, Paul Berg, and he left you, and you had 5 kids at the time in 2009. So this is what is it that soon? Wow, 3 years ago?
Almost 3.
It seems so. Okay. You just are completing your chaplaincy. You're going to be a chaplain. Mm-hmm. You're already doing a ton of volunteer work and work there. Author of many books. Co-founder of the Heart to Home that we just heard about. But you're a coach. You're a trainer. You were Mrs. Utah, 2007. Ow! And now you're a grandma.
Yes, I am. That's true.
So of all of those things, though, a charity addict is what you're claiming to be. Okay, so that life, pretty diverse. You're all over. You're the kind of person that could literally do anything you want to do. That has now been proven. Why charity?
Well, in my home, we were raised doing charity. My mother was a big advocate for that. She would have us serving in the soup kitchens, wrapping the sandwiches, handing them to people, homeless people. She would make up a big batch of popcorn and take us as teenagers down to the homeless shelter with all of our games
what a
in
great
tow.
Mom.
And she would say, we're going so you can play board games with the other teenagers at the homeless shelter. They don't have friends. So we were always very resistant to that as kids. It was uncomfortable. It smelled bad. They were so different. Mm-hmm. And she was very good to say, there is nothing that makes you different than these people. But by the grace of God, you're not here.
Yeah.
And so she was very good to model that to us. And so when given the opportunity in 2004 to be part of a team similar to the National Home Makeover Show, I thought it would be a lot of fun.
So you were just invited to be a part of the team?
Yes. In fact, Greg and I didn't know each other prior to that. There was a general contractor that I had known, and he also knew Greg. He contacted about 5 different people and said, would you like to do something like the national show?
Yeah, let's do it. And you modeled it after the show.
We did.
But minus the show.
Minus the money.
Minus the money. But what you do. So explain the whole system, because you've changed a lot of lives. About 6 a year.
Yeah.
You're
well,
doing
and these
6
are
homes a year.
families or centers. We've started to do centers, home makeovers on centers. The Now I Can Center.
Okay.
We did. This is for children with disabilities, so that we're reaching more families.
Yeah.
Larger venues.
And so you just go in, you find the need, and then you start, I guess, organizing the resources.
And one thing that makes us different is we're all volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
There is no one that's paid on our staff. And so when we look at a project, we really look at, is it doable for our group?
Yeah.
Is it accessible? We haven't done anything that's super far away. We just don't have the
Just
ability
keep
to
it
do
local.
that. We keep it local, and we look at the list of people on our contact base, our database, and say, okay, we've got a lot of plumbers, so doing a wheelchair accessible bathroom like we just
Could
did
really
in
be
Riverton,
helpful.
we could do that.
So,
We've got the
give
people.
us some of your examples. Give us some of your favorites, the ones that you're like, okay, this made my day.
Okay, the last...
Because this is why you're addicted to it, because it's charity's charity, but you really can't get enough of this.
I just think it's fabulous because it's doable.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think you struck a nerve, I think, for a lot of people, is that guilt. I don't want guilt to drive my life. And I don't think guilt drives us. I think we get so much reward for seeing what changes for people. For example, we just did last month a home makeover with the Riverton Police Department. They had actually raised a lot of the funds. There was a 14-year-old girl, Kendra Muller, who was at a pool party with her friends. All the friends sat on a hammock and the support beams broke. And everything collapsed on top of her, all the brick columns, and she's now a quadriplegic at 14.
I remember the story.
Yeah, and so the Riverton Police Department had raised a lot of funds to help her create this wheelchair accessible needs in her home. But the bathroom was the biggest issue. And so they contacted...
A girl needs her bathroom.
Oh, heavens.
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what age you are. The girl needs it.
And so they had actually gone to the junior high school and asked the kids if they would help to fund this as well, to the point of even being tased. The police department and the principal were tased once a certain amount of money was raised.
Holy, what a great fundraiser idea.
Exactly.
I mean, that's where charity's good.
Okay.
Because anyone would tase their principal.
Well, and here you have a need in a community. You have leadership in a community rallying, and you have kids that are actually donating $5, lunch money, movie money.
Right.
And they raised enough, and we were able to create this amazing bathroom for her. So it's really that stone soup concept where what can you do, and let's do it so the needs are met.
Well, and it's interesting. It almost sounds, it doesn't matter even really what it is. I mean, because that was just one story. There's hundreds. There's thousands of people like that around the country. It's just a story. But the bigger story is, getting all of these people involved, getting everybody focused on one effort, on changing a life. And it creates this spirit, doesn't it?
It does. Well, and in fact, you look at all the components that we bring into that. One of the fun components was on the reveal day, it was actually Officer Appreciation Week. So here we have all of these Riverton police officers there. Well, and a company called Beyond Glaze had made fresh out of the oven. They had made maple bacon donuts just for the police officers. So sometimes you think
it comes around.
Yeah, it comes
That's
around.
karma.
Sometimes you think, well, I don't have anything to offer, and yet you really do.
If you own a bacon shop, you own a donut shop, and you're like, what I can offer is what I can offer donuts. And the cops, it's interesting, too, how healing for the cops, because all of these police officers show up on this scene where this beautiful 14-year-old is just crushed, and the community rallied, but they then on their own collect money, They just need someone to kind of operationalize the funds, and then you guys step in, and it really is. And it's almost like everyone's being called to do it, isn't it? It's not like you can go out and ask, but a lot of people are just being drawn to this idea.
Well, and that's where, you talk about, okay, am I being guilted and pressured or driven by resentment, or am I being compelled?
Yeah.
Because
Invited,
the empathy, and it's a different driver.
Yeah, totally. Well, so part of that, and I guess we'll get into that a lot in the next segment, is how do you turn it from compelled guilt, I mean, not even compelled, forced, coerced guilt, to actually feeling like, you know what, I'm being called. And maybe that's what a lot of the guilt is about, is that I'm feeling prompted to help, and everything about me says, no, I'm not going to do that right now. So I want to get into that, and I want to know how, because you've had a lot of other, I mean, your life is kind of perfect to focus on charity. Because you know what I mean? You've probably had times where you've needed some, and yet you're turning it into your life. Your life is now helping people. Why? I mean, what drives you? Because it's not lucrative.
No.
And it's time consuming. It takes your time, and you're not making any money. You're not taking any fees to organize all these things. You're just out giving. What keeps driving the giver?
I think a couple of things. Number one, I do want my children to learn this. Yeah. I want this to be important to them.
And talk about your kids on the set. I mean, like not the set, that's on the day of the working and putting these houses together. Because it's a pretty neat idea that you've got.
Well, they know that they're going to get wrangled into it, and they always get the worst jobs.
Yeah, do they?
They do.
Because they're your daughter.
Yeah, they're my kids, and they tend to get the jobs that other people don't want to do. And I think that they're seeing the value. But at the end of the day, I did watch my husband Paul pass away very young. Yeah. And as I look at that, I realize at the end of the day, what you created through ego and title and prestige, none of that matters. It's, are you right with yourself? Yeah. And when I do these projects, the empathy, that makes me right with myself.
See, isn't it interesting? So you're healing, and your family's healing. And it's interesting. So it's almost all in a way like you're on the fixing this house, healing, and interestingly, Paul's probably there, and others are there that are catching the fire of healthy caring. It's just healthy. Really, all empathy or charity is active caring.
Right.
It's caring present tense.
Right. And I think where that resentment comes in is when you're getting mixed up between ego and empathy. I agree. And so when we're at the store and someone says, do you want to give $1 and get a shamrock with your name on it? Maybe an ego thing, but there's no empathy there.
Yeah, right. I'm not feeling what it's going to. It's just another organization that wants my money.
Right. And yet when we're engaged in something where we see someone's life is very different and so much better because of us, it makes a difference for us.
Oh, that's huge. So I want to talk about that, because really when we come back, we got to figure out how do we connect into the empathy and continue this conversation about how do we eliminate the guilt, which I think the guilt just is eliminated once you're aligned to your essence, to the empathy of it, the spirit of it. And I also want to get your ideas on, what else can we do? What are the simple things we can do? We don't all have to go start a charity, right? We all don't even have to go just participate in charities. There's a million things we can be doing, so I want to pick your brain on that.
Awesome.
You're awesome. Okay, we're talking to Tiffany Berg. Again, just, self-proclaimed addict of charity, which would sound bad, but you know what? It's charity, for heaven's sakes. We will be back with more Tiffany and more ideas on how to get that spirit of charity into your life right here on the Matt Townsend Show on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio. Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. I'm your host, Matt Townsend, and we have brought a charity addict, full-blown just so strung out on love and charity that we're picking her brain. Her name's Tiffany Berg. She's co-founder of Heart to Home, which is just a great charity. And again, the charity it's not the point of the program is to pick a charity. Your point is just to become charitable.
Exactly.
And so, Tiff, help us out because, again, guilt's not the goal. But, I just think we've gotten really good. I mean, a lot of charities are led by religious organizations, and a lot of religious organizations are really good at inducing guilt. So, like, if you want to go to heaven, do charity. So I think so much of the time, that's how we try to motivate, or we show videos of poor third world country people that aren't eating. And it pulls at our heartstrings, and maybe that's what creates this prompting and gets people separated from the world and start noticing that people need help. How do we do it if we want to invite people and get people excited about giving and giving themselves and being charitable? How do we do it if we're not inducing guilt? What's a better motivator?
Well, I think guilt taps into our ego and offends us. Mm-hmm. We feel that resentment and we feel offended, and so we're responding to defend ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're serving
to
defend ourselves.
Hurry, I got to get this over with.
Yeah, it's not out of empathy.
Right.
And so I think sometimes that word charity conjures up the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Charity meaning less than. The leftovers.
Yeah.
Where empathy is really putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be in a third world country. It could be right around the corner, just seeing a need. And I think sometimes we make it too difficult. Yet when we're finding something organic in our lives to help with, we feel whole.
What are some of the more organic ways, just the around the corner ways that we could just get involved?
Well, often in a neighborhood, there is one or two homes that is less taken care of. Uh-huh. There's usually a reason.
Right.
There's usually a help.
It's because they're lazy.
Well, sometimes.
That's what people do. They're just lazy bums.
Sometimes there is there's something else going on.
Yeah.
If there's hoarding, maybe there's a chemical imbalance, maybe a bipolar issue, maybe there's a terminal illness. Find out.
Yeah.
Find out. That would be the empathetic thing to do as opposed to rushing to judgment.
And just helping regardless.
Exactly. There's
a need.
And if someone's having a hard time and you're right there and you have skills, that can be a great way to give. Often people think of the big things. I need to be a foster parent of 6 children from Ethiopia. Yeah. Well, not everybody can do that.
Right. Yeah.
Or should.
That's right.
So, maybe if you're feeling inclined in that direction, maybe a first step would be offering respite care for 2 hours a week at a family center. Or maybe, in hospice care, we have people that will give an hour a week and they'll read scriptures to someone in an elderly care center. It doesn't have to be something huge that is so difficult. And
it can be in the neighborhood. The deal is the needs are there. So you can kind of go formal where you just call a hospice center that can then guide you to where they need help. Or you can go a little informal to just the neighbor next door whose yard needs some mowing or some help.
Exactly.
It's there. But then open up your heart and follow the prompting.
And I think that's one thing that I love right now. A lot of companies are getting outside the box.
Yeah.
We've got Tom's shoes that you buy a pair and a pair is donated. Mm-hmm. There's another thing called, I think it's Hope Water. And for every water bottle that's purchased, there's one that's given. And so I think we're really thinking outside the box and using capitalism in a way that can promote goodness. And really just thinking that way.
Yeah.
What's a better thing for me to do with my time or my money, as opposed to maybe getting a shamrock on the wall at Albertsons
in fact,
with your dollar.
You see that, I guess, because you need donations. You need donations to put these things together. You also have companies that when you call up and say, great, we're finishing a bathroom, you have companies that will just send employees to get stuff done in these programs. So these, I guess, are charitable leaders carrying on their legacy, and it's convincing. Maybe it's creating a charitable company.
Well, and if we look at, in the motivational speaking industry,
Yeah.
10 years ago, 15 years ago, companies would send all of their employees to see some great guru get up on the stage and pump them up,
Right.
hype them up.
Yeah.
And they would go back to the office, and a week later, nothing would be different. Yes.
Right.
Well, now we see that great leaders are looking at ways to really change their employees, change them on a heart level.
Yeah.
We've worked with Vivint or Apex Alarm. We've worked with Kohl's, companies that have these programs that say, okay, if our employees come to us with a charitable cause that they have fallen in love with,
Right.
if we can rally around that and have our employees out on these projects in our company shirt,
Yeah.
and we're giving money to the charity that they feel passionate about in our neighborhood, we're going to see change.
Yeah.
We're going to see loyalty.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what's happening.
I just did a speech for an organization that does like genealogy software, basically. So it's kind of like where you can go find out about your grandparents and great-grandparents and all these people. Well, before I spoke, about 300 of them spent half a day cleaning tombstones, gravestones, and grave sites, and just cleaning up a cemetery and archiving all the pictures. And you wouldn't believe the spirit, just the proud spirit that these people had, because they had. And by the way, to what? To tombstones, to gravestones, to. It was the neatest thing. By the way, that's what they do. That's what their software is about. And yet they felt honored because they went and exerted energy, and they left it on the field, so to speak. They left their love in the cemetery, and it converted them. It changed them.
I think that's where we have the disconnect, is when we feel guilty or we're being guilted into something, and there's not that transformational moment, that love moment.
Yeah.
We talk about 3 things that
Yeah.
are involved with that. And in any love moment, there's safety, there's growth, there's fun. If an employer can really see that and harness that and enable people to have that experience, they will be more present at their jobs.
That's what your mom did for you.
Exactly.
She took you to these places, and while you were there, you felt some safety, fun, and you sensed the growth, and it changes you.
Exactly. And I think, these police officers that helped with Kendra's house, they're parents.
Yeah.
So watching this 14-year-old girl now have a bathroom where she could have privacy, she has mobility, she has safety.
Yeah.
They were in tears.
Yeah.
So it's really, what can you do that is already organic in your life that you could help with, that would have that kind of transformational piece to it, as opposed to just giving your dollars.
I mean, it's interesting. Isn't that interesting? Because otherwise, giving dollars, that's great. We need money. Everyone needs money. But the benefit is it ends up converting you. It ends up, because that's the neat thing about this, is you go thinking, like I was thinking, I don't have any more money to give. Okay? I don't have any more money to give. Yet I have energy to give. And the neat thing about it is when I gave my charity, if I go give charity and serve, I only get more charity. So charity begets charity. And really, it's giving of yourself. The funny thing for me is the money that is the least important thing for me to give. And if I would just give what's most important to me, which would maybe be my time, I'd probably care 10 times more.
Well, and what would it be like for you as a parent to see your kids converted to charity?
Yeah. Huge.
To become, as adults, to become charity addicts.
Like all of a sudden you see your kids seeing somebody, an elderly person needing help, and instead of watching or laughing or critiquing, they jump up and run over. And by the way, and they would learn that going to read at an elder care facility and spending time with people. No, that's all that would matter, really, right?
Yeah, and I think there's part of giving in a charity setting that breaks down the walls of being afraid. Having worked with so many people in wheelchairs now, I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
around wheelchairs.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable around people with Alzheimer's.
Did you have that before Paul? Before your husband got cancer?
I think I did. I think his brother was in a wheelchair,
That's
Art
right.
Berg. And so I think I really learned that
Yeah.
from him. But definitely now being able to see what accessibilities do they need and really understanding how rough life is if they don't have those.
Right. How fascinating, though. That's just so. Then all of a sudden, you're comfortable with people in all different walks of life, and that helps you be able to create closeness, intimacy with anyone. What happens when all of a sudden you're comfortable with the poor, impoverished, homeless person, and you're actually comfortable looking them in the eye and talking to them? I mean, what boundaries do you have with other humans when you're safe and comfortable with the elderly that's dying or the person with Alzheimer's? You can go anywhere.
In chaplaincy, I learned a Native American phrase, and that is, we are all related. And in that faith tradition, obviously, that includes nature and animals.
Right.
But when you look at another person and you feel a disconnect, or the walls going up, or judgment, it really speaks to you and where you're at.
Yeah.
And so if you can use charity and service as a way to unlearn that, and to take down the walls.
Yeah, find a new way around that wall.
Yeah, it's powerful.
That is cool. Does what do we need to watch out for? Or like, where do we begin? If you think about it, where do you begin to get the spirit of charity? And if we want to drive ourselves to be an addict of charity, where do we begin?
Well, I think really turning it around from where it's been in the recent years. I think when you hear charity, there's a charity dinner, there's a charity auction, there's a charity, and I would really want people to think outside of that term, service.
Yeah.
How can I serve? What gifts and skills do I have that are unique to me that would allow me to serve someone else? Because I think in the past where we've talked about, here's a silent auction, it's for charity. It's kind of a cheap thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't require us to be better people.
That's charity light.
Yes.
That's easy charity. But the hard charity is giving where you are going in and your heart is vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of just right there, eye to eye with another soul.
Yeah.
In their pain.
Yeah, and companioning them in some way. And I think, we buy a gift basket at a charity event, we don't feel any different the next day.
Yeah.
When we really serve another human being, we feel different.
Yeah. Maybe that's it. It's the accounting. Where are you doing the toll? Or where are you taking the toll? In your heart? Or in your soul? Or are you taking the toll, the tally mark? Yeah, that we made $200 on that one. I mean, I've done it. I bought something at a charity and then went and used the card. We just went the other day to dinner with somebody that got the card at charity, and when they were paying for their meal with their card that they bought at charity for 4 times its actual value, it didn't work. And they're like, that charity ripped me off. So now all of a sudden we're mad at a charity. That is, I guess, your accounting is, hey, I deserve a card, but versus, you know what, it felt great.
And that's where I think we can really, that's the litmus test.
Yeah.
Did we do that for ego because someone saw us at that auction buy that big ticket item, or did I feel compelled or guilted? That's our ego. And sometimes even going to a third world country is ego.
Totally.
However, if it's coming from empathy, it's a different feeling.
And it's permanent. And it's forever.
It's memorable.
You'll never forget that one. And the accounting's made, and I to me, it's made with your maker. You feel empathy for another. You are closer to your God.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
See how easy? I'm almost an addict.
See, you're.
I just have to go do it. I'm running out of money. I don't know that I could be addicted to anything else.
But that's one thing too. Is for so long in the last few years, we've been. It's all about giving money.
That's what
and
charity
really,
seems like.
I think that's a distraction for us right now. It's not about money. It's not. Most of the people that work with Heart to Home, they're not giving money. They are laying sod, or they are hooking up a pipe under a sink, or they are.
But Tiffany, see, all that
cleaning
stuff's
windows.
hard.
it does require some
But that's what
tenacity.
creates the conversion, right?
That's right.
You're the best. Tiffany Berg. Now, Tiffany, where can they find more information out about you, about, your organization, Heart to Home? Where can they find you?
They can go to heart2homefoundation.org, and that's the number 2. But really, if that's not a good fit, if you have skills in other areas, if you're a dancer, find some volunteer work that taps into those skills.
And get out. It does, yeah. Just do charity, not necessarily the money charity, even though that's helpful, but do the charity that changes your heart.
Absolutely.
You are the best. Tiffany Berg. I'm telling you, you wouldn't believe she's a grandma. And a motivational speaker, incredible woman. We will have Tiffany back on the show. She's got great insight, too, just about, I think, life, and her life story is amazing. So check her out at tiffanyberg.com as well, right? Thank you again, Tiffany. Appreciate you. Stick with us, folks. We're going to come back for our final section or segment of the show where we're going to wrap it up, give you a few more tools, and hopefully a leg up on this charity idea. You're listening to The Matt Townsend Show on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio. Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. And wrapping up this idea of charity, getting a little more charity in our life. And, doesn't always have to be about spending money. Sometimes it's about giving your heart. And as you give your heart, you find yourself. We're going to now go to one of our producers, Bryce Tobin, who hit a thrift store recently. It sounds like he robbed it, but he didn't. He just went. He perused the store a little bit. He wanted to see a little bit more of the obvious products of charity.
You would not be wrong to say that my 4-man bachelor pad's decorative theme is Spartan, to say the least. But spend a few minutes perusing the decorations and knickknacks in a thrift store, and you realize, meh, could be worse. Don't get me wrong, I like to save money, promise. Thrift stores are fantastic places with a fantastic idea. It defies logic that a business can run on charity like this. But not all donations are created equal. If you're gonna give good. I decided to drive over to a thrift store and see what kind of gems I could find. There was the tie with John Madden's face on it for $3, and I'm not sure if that's a reasonable price. But I was floored to see an Ibanez X Series 6-string guitar for $80, which is quite a bit down from its $600-ish price tag. Then I saw a Fender Starcaster for $90, which was probably twice what it was worth. This guitar was followed by a clock, shaped like a guitar, with a big picture of a scene from I Love Lucy on the body of the guitar, and a very, very tiny clock in the bottom right corner for $30. It's okay, I don't get it either. There was a $25 gas mask, which isn't a bad deal if it works, but its availability raises questions about the previous owner, because people don't generally give these up while they're still alive. You could buy Jenna's second place soccer trophy, which would be quite serendipitous, for only $4 if your name is Jenna. Probably kind of odd if it's not, though. Same thing goes for someone else's wedding dress if it's your size and you're still in the 1980s. I looked for a price tag, but I got lost in all the ruffles and decided to abandon ship before things got any worse. And then I found an I'm with stupid shirt. Could we please do the human race a favor and forever retire these rags for the abhorrent things they are? Just seeing this on a hanger was too high a price. So what I really gotta say is, thrift stores are kind of like a bag of chips. You gotta go through a lot of broken, burned, and misshapen choices before you find the one you're looking for. But they are there, I promise. So if you're gonna give, like I said, give good. Who knows, you might make someone's day. Or some kid's story on the radio. Either way, it's fine with me.
Oh, Bryce. Cutest little 16-year-old we got on staff. Really good stuff. Sending him to the thrift store. And I don't know. I kind of like the I'm with stupid shirt. I don't quite get his problem with that. Charity. So worst case scenario, send stuff to the thrift store. Best case scenario, we lose our heart in trying to help other people. Now, my parents, my in-laws, just got home. Actually, last night I went to their home. They just returned from Samoa, where they did a medical mission, and he's a doctor, and they went and served and taught and did medical training on the island of Samoa. And while they were there, just trying to change lives, do what they can, giving, they came back and they had some really amazing stories. But more importantly, probably than their stories, was the spirit that they shared with my family, my kids, their grandkids, as they tell these stories about how he couldn't do basic medical procedures that he would do here in the United States on the people in Samoa because they simply didn't have the basic equipment to do what needed to be done. And how he watched a 14-year-old boy die because they just didn't have the tools. And I watched my kids, my 16-year-old, my 14-year-old, my 10-year-old, watch their dad, their grandpa, tell this touching story and realize that, you know what? Because they went and served, because they found charity in their heart, they're now spreading it to my family. And then my kids have talked to me about how can that happen? How can people be dying in parts of the world simply because we don't have something that is just a simple necessity here in the United States? You know what's amazing about my in-laws' charity is that they're now causing us to have a conversation. And now it's on a radio show on Sirius XM. It's interesting. It really only takes one of us to start to notice the need. And that need creates the charity. And then it's the charity that is the act, I guess, the gift, or is it also the spirit? Is it the spirit of charity that begets the act, or is it the act of charity that begets the spirit? And I'm going to say both. My father-in-law, my mother-in-law, leaving at a difficult time in their life, went to Samoa, and while they were there, it was an actual act of service to leave. They were leaving their family, they were leaving their health, some other things that were going on, and they left. And when they went, that spirit of charity created charitable acts. Those charitable acts converted my in-laws to even more charity, and they are now come home, and they're now explaining and sharing that with us, which I'm convinced will now motivate my children, my family, to be better and to serve more. To me, that is why we need to be more charitable. In the last few years, there has been a dip in the volunteer rate of charitable volunteers. Fewer and fewer are doing it. But the annual giving is going up 2.7%. So we're willing to give even if we're not willing to give our time. Can I just challenge you? If you feel in your heart a need to do more and be more, if you feel in your heart a need to give somebody $1, I'd follow the prompting. I wouldn't worry what everyone else says. I wouldn't worry about what it means or doesn't mean. I would just say, here's the $1. When you're prompted, follow the promptings. I've learned in my life when I do, amazing things happen, especially I feel better about myself and I feel closer to my God. That is the show, my friends. Charity never faileth. Please keep listening to the Matt Townsend Show. We're here Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern Time. Grab your friends. We also replay this at 7 o'clock Eastern Time as well, so we'd love to have you and your friends join us anytime you can. And again, you can get a hold of us at mattchat@byu.edu. Thanks for listening, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio.